everyone. Glad to see you all here. This is our 16th annual Regional Road Symposium. Hard to believe this. With that meaning, we appreciate everybody coming out. Guys, a little bit thinner this year. We're doing Plano Train Show is on our day. It seems that may be an ongoing thing, so we may be looking at trying to find another date to land on the future symposium. Some other more active place. Something about that. Today. I want to start by thanking our sponsors and make sure that they're acknowledged. Stephen Morrow, back to the table, they have been fantastic supporters, longtime supporters of the symposium. I'm sure everybody knows them by now. Wonderful folks, very generous, and they help make this thing possible. So when you see them today, please thank them for everything they do to help us out here. And I think they've got some surprises for folks today. I want to talk about that when we get. Railroad Partners Incorporated, Myron Malone, treasurer back here. They're a double gold sponsor this year of the event. It's been very helpful, and they've become very supporters of this, and they do great things. If you're not familiar with Railroad Partners, that is an affiliate of a national motor car organization, not COA. And they partner with railroads to run the antique motor cars, something called speeders, or maintenance away vehicles. If you've been to like a car show, this is like the same thing, just for all the maintenance railroad equipment. And they run them on rails, and partner with railroads with permission to do that, and adopt some railroads, keep things cleaned up and passable in case they abandoned, or possibly to be abandoned line, keep it passable so it can be a proper service. And the organization in Texas has done that. They cleaned it to a while. It's now back in revenue operations. So they're improving their mission and trying to be a new organization as well. Other major sponsor, sponsor we have is our college. College of Science and Engineering, Brent College. He's doing that now, and he's been a fantastic support for our event all the time. And our department head is Dr. Andrea Graham. She's the one who allows me to keep doing this, and I just want to express my personal appreciation to her and the colleagues about this support. I'd like to introduce one of my colleagues who's in this for me, Dr. Perry Moeller, in back here. It's the encouragement and support from those folks on a daily basis. It helps me a lot, and I appreciate that. We've got, I think, some really good programs this time. I think we're not really a bad program. That's just me. Our first presenter this morning is one that we've seen before, and I know we all enjoy, and he's going to, in his first presentation, continue something he started back before COVID for us with the 10 Texas teasers. And last year we had part 2, and this year he's going to bring us part 3. Just don't count. So if we're ready, Vince, we'll bring up Vince Hogan. All right, thank you, Jason. If you've attended these symposia the last 4 years, you will have noticed that I've started a series, which I call 10 Texas Teasers, which is part 3 today. And basically what it is just kind of various and sundry aspects of Texas railroad history and operations that I've kind of put together. Hopefully you'll find it interesting. All right, start off with a tribute to the host city for the symposium, Commerce, Texas. Here's a vintage postcard. I'm told this is what we keep correctly. Right? Probably from now the old Union Station Depot, Texas Building, Continental Depot. I found this on a postcard recently, so that's where this image comes from. I think it's, you mentioned it, it's in the archives of the common stuff project, so it's been duplicated. Very good.
What's the second half about? Yes, I wondered that would be the railroad always lived.
I think that's the old Thomas Hotel.
Okay.
That street there,
Back in the day, I was in that building on that old 1901 ambulance, so we Thomas Hotel.
very good. All right, we'll pay further tribute to the Cottonbelt here since it seems appropriate. Cottonbelt was instrumental in promoting agriculture along the lines. Okay? Couple postcard views here. One on the left shows, I don't know, some kind of building for, I guess, for a demonstration farm. I'm not sure it's actually in Texas. The writing on the back of the postcard mentions Memphis. So there may have been some kind of exposition in the Memphis area, and they had this building collected for guests that would show demonstrations of agriculture. Okay. The one on the right is obviously in Texas. It's a location called Brunswick, Texas. I had to actually look that up because it didn't ring a bell. It's a location is, I guess, a little bit southeast of Rusk, Texas. Apparently they had a experimental farm there at one time on demonstration. And if you notice in the background, you kind of see the image of Cottonbelt logo in North Moscow. Mega farm here, Texas. Something with a little bit more modern vintage, the Chaparral, for those of you who remember that. It was a short line that took over Senate, Bay Line, Paris, and Palmersville. This is early, I think, early 90s. That was all. Photo on the left is a freight passing through, I think it's Ben Frank. I think that's where that photo is taken. I didn't take the pictures, although I was there that day, and I did have my own pictures on the slide. The fellow that was with me that day took these and made prints out of them and gave them to me. The photo on the right is a special training that ran, I think, kind of a model one for the railroad, in the early 90s. Didn't get a chance to ride it, but I just chased it down to see what it did. So, quite a deal. It looks like there's 3 or 4 cars on it. I think the cars are probably a Cottonbelt 819. Didn't last long. If you remember what, a couple years. They ran as far as Farmersville. I think they had traffic lights. And the member of the Senate paid down to
father's house. Of course, this interchanged with the Comanche River Road Carousel.
Dennis, wasn't it part of the Comanche?
Yeah, I think it was same management or, yeah. All right. Business cards, okay? Business cards can be quite plain, but it can be quite interesting or ornate. So, one on the left is currently a business card of a conductor who's based in Rayburn, Texas. And you notice the kind of ornate design there. It looks like a ticket punch. I can't quite make out what the rest of it is. It looks like letters of the alphabet, kind of fancy style. Maybe C-O-R? What do you think? Need some help on this. Anyway, Mr. Birdsong had this as his business card. One on the left was a conductor, Mr. John Gray, and Galveston, Harrisburg, and San Antonio Road. And then a little bit more common type of business card that you would see or expect from somebody. One from Mr. Trinity, who was the superintendent of the flight cars, Texas and Pacific. And then Mr. Wellborn, who was the station manager in Fort Worth for a station restaurant. Now, this is something that's kind of unusual, and a lot of people don't know about this. During World War II, the IGN and the Texas and New Orleans both ran special shuttle trains for shipyard workers. Not only in the Houston area, but also one in Freeport and maybe Beaumont area. So, you have a ticket here that for one of those shuttle trains. Basically ran from the IGN depot in Houston down to the Todd shipyard at Irish Bend on Houston Ship Channel. Took workers back and forth. Actually, it was kind of a two railroad operation. I think the IGN took part of the way and then handed it over to Texas and New Orleans to take it to the shipyard itself. And here's a photo of the Irish Bend shuttle train shipyard. Notice the interesting kind of coaches on it. They came from a railroad back east. Might even be an urban railroad. But they were requisitioned by the Maritime Commission during World War II. Brought to Houston.
I think they were from Westchester, the northern,
West Coast? Okay.
Westchester,
Oh,
in
Westchester,
New York,
yeah.
New York City.
Yeah.
Harlan Hollingsworth cars.
I think I've read that also. All right, you've all heard of Great Crash and Crush. Well, there was also the Great Zilch back in 1986. The end freight train derailed in the vicinity of the still standing depot at North Gulch, which is on the road from Rock Island to Rock Island. There were two people in the vicinity at the time in the depot. I think the station agent operator managed to get out. My granddaughter, not so lucky, she got trapped in the depot. She lived, but she sustained some injuries. But the depot was no more after this incident. Now, this is an interesting shot. You've all seen probably the depot that exists today down in Dennis, Texas. It's a railroad museum. Very fine. Okay, but this is the depot that existed before the one. This is a view looking south, okay? Large two-story depot. Looks like it might have been a hotel or something over on the left, I'm not quite sure. This depot, I read burned in 1935, which parts to the extent that they replaced the structure, I'll show you in a minute. So this is a view looking somewhat north from the tracks. You can still see the same two-story depot that was in the previous slide. This building here on the right is what is the replacement depot, the one that burned or partially burned in the background there. And of course, this one, before it was a depot, was a abandoned lunchroom or restaurant. Okay. And so once they decommissioned the two-story depot, they made this abandoned restaurant a new depot. It was used up until the end of passenger service in 1958. By the way, the Ennis Depot, the two-story depot there, is very similar in style to the one that was built in Schulenburg, Texas. Very, very similar in terms of kind of the brick-rack and stuff underneath the easy roof. Right, here's a photo, I think of the stores area at the Marshall Shops. For the TNT, what a busy place, a lot of parts and supplies lying around. Here's a view of a place you probably never heard of before, San Martin, Texas. It's was way out in west Pecos, Texas. In Pecos and Sierra Blanca. You have to wonder why this location rated such a large depot or structure at the time. Virtually nothing in there today. There's probably not much there when it was, a thriving road. So, yeah. I found this picture on the website hosted by a gentleman out of Austin. He has a website called Traces of Texas. He posts all sorts of photographs of different sorts, not necessarily railroad photographs, but since I've never seen one in San Martin, this is worthy of presenting today. Here's another TNT work train. There was writing in the back of the photograph that identified some of the people in the photo, but nothing to indicate the location of the work train. Since I showed those two business parks earlier in the slideshow, business cards of two gentlemen that manage the TNT dining facilities in Fort Worth, I thought I would present this as well. This is a menu, or just a cover of the menu, for the TNT restaurant at the TNT Depot in Fort Worth. They actually own and operate the depot. Some later time they may have leased it out to some other contractor, but at least at one time, it was actually part of the dining car club. And here's the contents of the menu itself. Looks like it's a menu from 1943. phase. Yeah, there's a notation at the bottom, right here, from the Office of Parks Administration, 1943. Deputy World War II era. Here's a photo you don't see it too often. TNT, a little branch line that ran from Shreveport to Texarkana, the corner of Arkansas. So TNT actually did have a towboat in Arkansas. And this is their 3 times a week mixed train that ran between the 2 cities.
Report to Oklahoma.
Say again?
We're talking about Austin brand,
Austin branch, okay.
ADOSSDON. The oil facility, up there. I actually was up there when I was in college, I actually rented that. A friend of mine was this place called South Arkansas, and a friend of mine said, I'm not going to go down there because they put their big clips up there. I said, big clips everywhere, unfortunately.
Oh, they still want that.
All the southeast economies.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of oil field, business up north there, places like Delaware.
All right, telegraph codes. I don't know about all the railroads, but many of the railroads had a list of codes. I think mainly for brevity of the communications, but there might also be an element of security involved in these codes. Although I have to ask myself, who's tapping into telegraph lines and why are they tapping in? But anyway, they would issue these books of telegraph codes. I've seen at least 2. I've seen the Katy one. I've seen also the Santa Fe one. I'm assuming that other roads have a similar type of code. This one's dated 1970. So this one is broken up into sections. There's departments, planning department, freight department. Each word represents several word action or name. For example, freight section, David represents a goodbye, probably great, so forth, so on. Interesting bargaining here, down the list, represents cars from requested driver Katie. I can certainly see how you can make telegraph communications shorter by using the code. There's part of the section on passenger traffic, some of the codes that we use. Notice the word panic is used for the Santa Fe train. Pansy is used for a TP train. Anyway, these will continue a short little book of probably not more than 30 pages. Goes for different parts of the railroad. All right. We run out of miles. 1900s. Basically, it was a punch ticket that allowed you so many miles of usage, and then everything was punched out, you didn't have a ticket, or you could try it. It's not a ticket. Notice the date on this, I can't tell if it's 1877, 1875, it's still a pretty early date. Just, yeah, a variety of different functions on this ticket. All right, that's it. Any questions? Yes.
I had heard or read or somehow or other, in the booking notion with the Chaparral Railroad was formed specifically for aggregate from Memphis Terrace in Oklahoma down to the Chickasaw and down in Appalachia, and then the Chickasaw that case of the railroad is abandoned in Phoenix. Is that true?
You know, I don't know, but it's possible. I think if you kind of coincide with the time frame, I'm not sure what all the Chaparral had to carry. How much business they had, it was like Wall City, Farmersville. Obviously not enough to go out of business. I think most of that road is, well, it's been abandoned in just one Farmersville. I think a good part of it is hike and bike trail. Not all of it, but a good part of it. And one thing I'll note real quick before I hand over the mic is that we've never been to Roxton? Roxton, okay. It's worth a detour because there's at least 2 stone bridges in Roxton that the Saturday built through a lot. The bridges are still there, as far as I know. 3, okay. But they're good examples of, the annual stone masons and those, railroad. In fact, those 2 photos that I showed you earlier, the Chaparral, that same day we went to Rockton. I think we chased that one freight through Rockton, coming over the bridges, took a photo of it. There's a lady there in Rockton, who had a little museum. She wanted a picture of the bridges with the train on it. I gave her those photos some years ago. They may still be up there in that little museum. You'll get a chance to look that way. It's not, probably the whole time. It's really nice. All right, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. If you're on any of the related Facebook groups, particularly Rail Spot, Horace Allen, the groups on groups I've had, other groups, and move over. If you're following those, you will see a lot of things on there. He finds some of the most amazing, obscure thing, and this really just is a teaser to what this guy has come up with. It is, like every day, I like, okay, what's this posted today? It's just really awesome. The things that he uncovers that you never even imagine. I wish I had the kind of time to like it's fantastic. He's found and what he wanted to share and get everybody. That's great. we're gonna take just a few minutes break, and we'll get ready for the next presentation, so everybody can visit. I want to acknowledge someone else who, Sawyer Manis is our archivist now for the special collections in our Waters Library. I have to remember the new name of the library now has changed. All that is so hard to remember. He takes care of the archives up there. We really glad to have him on campus and looking at information on. He's doing a fantastic job. We appreciate him. Corey does, we have some appreciation for what he's doing. He's doing on for us. The symposium and have on record. So glad to do that. All right, let's do it for a few minutes and we'll go back to the next program. All right, we're ready to get started. A really neat project that's been going on in Rayburn Town, Orlando, is the restoration of the depot there, which is the oldest in Texas. Is it the oldest in Texas? Oldest surviving depot in Texas. We have the gentleman that's been leading that project. They've done fantastic work. It's beautiful. I was presented four stages of that project. And I think he's going to give us an update on that. And they've got another amazing project underway that he's going to tell us about that. So I'll hand my door to that.
So this set on all the night presented before. I think I recognize most of y'all. Yeah, this is kind of a labor look. We'll put the agenda in. We'll talk about a brief history of Anna. We'll talk about the railroads that served Anna. And we used to say that Anna actually had 3 railroads, but now we find out there's 3 other railroads, total 4 railroads that come from town. How we rescued, relocated, and destroyed the depot, how the museum got set up. And I wasn't really sure what to call this. In CSA 201, this locomotive's had quite a history. And I guess growing up Moscow Canyon, St. Augustine is kind of the majority of its life, we'll call it. But you'll find out why that's a tradition. I'm not going to bore you with his history, but Colin Kinney settled in the area. He died 23 years before Ann Arbor existed, so down here got the honors of being the first president. Eastern Texas Central Railroad came through. It's what we call the spark that ignited the town of Anna. There was nothing there when the railroad came through. And with laid rails, people started moving that direction. This slide is actually one that we do keep historical society to talk about our history. And when we started out in 2004, there was 3 basic stated goals. And the important one being to rescue, relocate, and destroy the depot. The top photo there is a photo that the depot in a temporary location. Give you a little bit of history of the depot, kind of a timeline. The town was platted out in 1883. People started moving towards the railroad. By 1885, they built this depot in town. And it served the town like most railroad depots around all across the country, for that matter, up until the 50s. The 50s, it was just literally boarded up, abandoned in place. 1961, when the Southern Pacific got control of Texas roads, they want people to those and burning people all over the place. And it wasn't just down with all the roads. Like this depot, thankfully, instead of getting torched, one of the local residents, a merchant there in town, had farmland out west of town. And he approached the railroad about the possibility of just dragging the depot off property and using it for farm. And that's what happened. It got dragged about 2 miles out west of town. And they used it hay storage, pigs, chickens, all that fun stuff. Better faith than what most other people have done. So, when State Highway 75 was building through up north from Dallas, up Oklahoma City, one of the guys in town got talking about the depot, and people saying, "Oh, it was burned, it was cold, it was whatever." He said, "No, it's still out there somewhere." So So we got permission from the land developers to have the property up there developed later on, almost built. And, fortunately, we got pulled back into town and started our restoration project. I'll go through that here in a bit. Like I said, we published a book in 2018 called The Spark That Ignited the Town of Anna. And I tell you, basically, now that we've got the depot open, we're operating as a museum, one of the first projects we started to do was we worked with the school district. Here in Texas, students learn Texas history in fourth grade. So we started kind of building curriculum around fourth grade, fifth, sixth grade. And just this year, we've partnered with the ISD. Starting in January, we're going to teach every sixth grader Texas history in the depot. And since our book is called The Spark That Ignited the Town of Anna, we've got a presentation that we give to the school kids. This is what caused the spark. Okay, the road is fine, but why did they build Anna here? Where did my previous get from? So let's put it on over there. There's reasons why that happened. So this presentation, this few slides I took out of that presentation, I'm not going to bore you with the long sixth grade history lesson, but I pulled a few slides that I thought kind of interesting. To learn about what caused the spark in Anna, well, first of all, we talk about how historians study history. You know, sometimes we have old photographs like this 1904 photograph of Anna. We rely on fire insurance maps. We rely on people's personal recollections, letters. We find a lot of information written on through the Bible. So this is a photo in 1904 of what they called railroad street back in the day. It's called Higgins today. So you can look at that. You can see the horses and the muddy streets. And archaeologists can take a look at that and know that standard construction. They didn't build buildings in Anna any different than they did anywhere else. So windows are still the same size. You can still think up. And we have a retired archaeologist as a member of our society. And he's recreated kind of the old town of Anna in the HO scale. And kids love being able to look at the old photographs and look at the diagram and being able to compare the two. But we still kind of wonder, why did they build Anna the way they did? To get that answer, really have to kind of look at what was going on in the country at the time. This is an 1850 map in the United States. That is, if you remember the history of the Western expansion and made it out kind of past Missouri there. It was pretty barren wild land, I call it. Well, in 1848, gold was discovered in California. Of course, you know about the 1849 gold rush. But for folks in the east to get to the Golden West, there wasn't a whole lot of ways to get there. You could go by canoe or something, but rivers couldn't get narrower and shallower as you go west, and then you pass the continent fight and you go. But, you know, you could probably carry like a couple hundred pounds. You don't take it once to get across the country for not years. So they figured they just sail around, right? Just get the boat and go down around. And once you kind of off what they would send up this go in a couple months, you can create 2,000 pound build, right? Well, there's something wrong with that picture. In 1850, the Panama Canal doesn't exist yet. They wouldn't be there until 1914. So you have to kind of go the long way around. And when it's summertime in New York, it's wintertime down around the Cape, and that's not very pleasant sailing. I've been down those waters for 20 years maybe. That's not exactly the most fun place in the world to sail. So there was a guy, if you remember the railroad history, Asa Whitney was a New York merchandiser, financier, you know, entrepreneur. He had traveled Asia in the 1830s and 40s. And here in the States, we were building railroads like Baltimore. They built a couple miles between Baltimore. They built a couple miles in Philadelphia, where in Asia they were building from town to town. That's how you got commerce moving. In 1846, Asa Whitney went to Congress and said we need a transcontinental railroad. What calling that there. But of course, you know, project got underway. Of course, the war got in the middle of that. So 1867, 1869, they completed that. Well, the problem is Texas is 575 miles south of the transcontinental railroad. So if you guys like Ebenezer Allen, who the Allen named after, he's kind of the same deal as Asa Whitney, but he's down in Galveston, you know, trading Indian territory up on the Red River. We call it Denison today, it didn't exist at the time. The problem with the Red River is you get goods put on the Red River, but Red River had natural log jams and all kinds of stuff. So again, in these situations, there's something new, go a few miles down the river, I know everything, drag it to Newcastle on again. You know, so you're looking at still a couple months to get it from like, where Denison is there, get it down to Mississippi over Galveston. So, Ebenezer Allen decides that he's gonna build a railroad from Galveston up to the Red River. So if you look at that, like I said, I truncated this display of this presentation back there. But if you look at that, coming up from Dallas, Waco, and that, it's just kind of a straight shot. So why did they build Anna where they built Anna, or built Anna where they did? Because that's just for the railroad pass through. And it did, eventually, this is a train that would have been very typical that you see in the 1940s. So again, like I said, that was a half-hour presentation that we did for the school, it gets a lot more detail. Give it kind of as a point of reference for us. So, the Eastern Texas Central Railroad, I'll give you a little brief history on that. Like I said, Ebenezer Allen chartered it in 1848. Not really much happened for a few years. In 1855 and 1856, Paul Brumman and a few others got some money involved, and they changed the name to the Eastern Texas Central. And they actually started getting the line built. Of course, the Civil War got in the way, but after the war, 1867, things kind of started getting going again. The construction efforts in the South started going. And it passed through Dallas in 1871. It came through the area that eventually became down in late 1873. And then in March of 1873, when they connected the Red River, they made connection with the Katy Railroad. It was the first all-rail connection from St. Louis to the Gulf Coast. Houston, Texas Central was purchased by Charles Morgan. I don't know if you know his history. 1877 was the Great Depression, prior to the British Great Depression. And the Houston, Texas Central survived because Morgan threw his money on it. Continued operating as the Houston, Texas Central until 1927, when it was leased to Texas and New Orleans. And of course, in 1934, when the Southern Pacific control the New Orleans, Texas roads, H&TC completely disappeared. It was too involved. And his other railroad was the Texas Electric. 1908, with Texas Electric built from Denison Sherman area down to Dallas. And connected up with a bunch of other local interurban lines. They were all collectively known as interurban. The interurban schedules were such that trains would arrive in Dallas on the island, and they depart Dallas on the half hour. So if somebody at Anna could get a train to get to Dallas and make a connection on a half hour, go to Fort Worth to business where they needed to do. They started operation in the middle of 1908. This is a picture of the library building that I found. A bunch of stockholders in business and politicians got on the train to Dallas, rode to McKinney, and then the train ran virtually to North. Okay, so this is a photo, the city website. I put this photo on the city website. They dated it circa 1930s. And the first thing that caught my eye was a 1930 type standard people that were next to the Reese's Food Cafe. So I didn't know if it could be mid-30s. But I got looking at that truck, and it's not a new truck, it's a couple-year-old truck. And what kind of stuff turns out that's a 1939 Dodge one ton. It was the only year that that was built. So this could not be a 1930s photo. I'm thinking probably 42. Don't really know. But again, this is in interurban street today, it basically is probably the rails and it's road. But it's on Main. So going back to what we've been doing in people trying to reconstruct history, we have a different model of this and we have a 35 scale group. Texas Electric car there was by one model and had a box of parts and that way they could piece together and make it perfectly. The Texas Electric and all the interurban lines for that matter, they survived through the 20s, the early 20s. Portion of the Depression hit in the 30s, they stayed in business because it was basically the only way people had to get goods in and out of town on the rail lines. But following the war, the soldiers put money in the second line started slowing down. It was very good ridership through the late 40s, mid-40s. So the remaining companies that are still in existence, I think it's probably like a couple of them, agreed to do the cease operation on December 31st, 1938. So this is the last day of service. And it's operated until we had New Year's Eve. And this, I told you that I'll tell you about Amos other railroads, Greenville Northwestern Railway Company, and Amos other railroads. They were chartered in 1912, and they built about 12 miles of track all the way up the hill. They went from Anna, they made it to Blue Ridge. They spent $122,000 to do that. 1915 was the best revenue year. They spent about $9,400 to operate, and they made about $9,042 in revenue. So they got to make money. One of the state railroad inspectors that came up to inspect said it was the worst line they had ever ridden over. They went to receivership in 1916, and they went in 1920. Then, well, that's kind of a route they went from Canada to Blue Ridge. It's 12 miles, and it's 33 stories. Some of them rather well, it was a local line. This locomotive, I don't know that number 2 is the one that Greenville Northwestern Railroad had, but HNTC had 4 of these on their roster and sold one of them to the G&W. And there's stories that people in town still remember. This locomotive derailed out east of town somewhere and slid down the side of the ditch, stayed in the ditch for years. So there's still people alive today that live in the good treatment with plant engineer in this locomotive. Sometime in the early 50s, they finally had it up and got it out of there. They also had 2 freight cars, a passenger car that they got from HCTC, and they also had a motor car that, I don't know what the motor car is, but it wasn't. Dennis was here with some maps about, 3 or 4 years ago, Dennis? And of course, I took a picture of the one that had Anna on there. And we talked about Anna's other railroads. There's a lot of information to get off on that. I love this one. You can see there the DW cut off from Anna and off to Blue Ridge. But when you read what the map is, it says these are the Houston, Texas Central sketch showing passing connecting tracks used by Missouri, Oklahoma, and Gulf Railway, Texas. I would anyone seem to be interested in this. As it turns out, MOG is basically a Katy company, and they operated before they actually had lines into Texas and Fort Worth. Katy would access Fort Worth by coming down Houston, Texas Central through, of course, from Edison down through the band on Plano, and then they would take the cotton belt from Plano to Fort Worth. And that's how Katy Railroad would access Fort Worth and where they were going to go. Some eye charts in the week that that's what we found out about it. And I'm not well versed on it. This was so I think Dennis talked about that, and we figured something out about how the KD came down through there. Can you talk about that? M1G is a KD subsidiary, isn't it? I don't know. Okay. Like I said, I'm not well versed on that issue, but I found out that there was a 4th road that came to that. Let's get to the fun stuff. A little basic timeline, I'll go over that. I've covered it already. We were built in 1985. It is the oldest existing surviving station in Texas. It was 7 feet long when they built it in 1937 for tax purposes. They literally racked 20 feet off the control. It stayed in operation until 1956. In the timetables, it's listed in 56. In 54, 55, it's listed was the non-postal 7.6. It's got agent's name, it's got hours of operation, it's got the whole gamut. In 1956, it says ANA 307.6. In 1957, it doesn't exist ANA. So I figure some probably late 56 of this deal with it. Moved off the railroad property in 61. The Historical Society was founded founded in 2004 with purpose to relocate to Shirley Depot. We got moved back into town to a temporary location. Like I said, the place where it was moved, when it was moved off railroad property, was being developed, the highway's coming through, the neighborhood was being built, and developers were just going to follow it down. So we're going to get it out of there, and we did that in 2007. Moved it back to the town to a temporary location. In November 2017, the Anna City Council repurposed a small ball field called Shirley Field. We thought a lot of people thought it was baseball field, but the truth was it wasn't even big enough to be play for a T-ball. It was 107 feet to center field, so my 60-plus-year-old would knock it out of the park. So anyways, November 2017, council approved Shirley Field as being a permanent home for it. We raised the money necessary to get movers to move to its new location in May of 2018. July it was placed on foundation, and we started restoration. So in April 2019, we got this Shirley Field was changed to Shirley Heritage Park, and the whole theme for that area is now focused on nature. Church, those get the point stuff. Like I said, when the people built it was 7 feet, this is a steel model of it, and our diorama showing what it used to look like. And again, this is based on our insurance maps and people's recollections and just artifacts that we can find. The only picture that we know to exist of the depot that was in operation is the mayor standing out in front of the depot and the north end of the depot in 1941 during a snowstorm. So, going forward with the after it was moved out of town, it was moved about 2 miles west of Anna, a couple hundred yards down the road. And this is the way we found it when we went out to close back of the town before we started driving. And chickens and all kinds of fun stuff inside there. Take note though that the station signs are still on the depot, and all the words from the lyrics still. I'll talk about those later. So when we pull it back into half a mile west of downtown, it's, you can see in the lower right part of the photograph there, it's the Hopkins Inn, and the Powell property near the Powell family. We let us park the depot there until we found something better. This area is going to be all we did for us. So the depot was just, safe and lonely, I guess, here until we got a place to put it. But in May, this is the picture just before we cut the roof. In May of 2018, we got moved into town. Moved back into this permanent home. Got located in Shirley Heritage Park. Got it set up. I say the real backstop and stuff. It really wasn't a good call. The city ended up building 2 regulation-sized ball field balls. This is pretty way to do it. All the complainers that we bought the ball field, we gave them 2 regulation-sized fields. No matter. We got it under the foundation and we started restoration work. We were very beneficial and a lot of the community was involved in this project. The roof was replaced by Bloomfield Homes, and we had already purchased some roofing materials to get started. The roofers that they did for the project had we not purchased any materials, they had to buy, provided materials. But Bloomfield did the roof, Island Homes, we did a reconstruction of the home area that had been torn off years before. Restoration work continued on through the winter. Funny story about the paint, we actually contacted the Southern Pacific Technical and Historical, whatever they're called. And then, oh yeah, you got to use colonial yellow, and here's your shirt when you paint under it or blind. Well, we went and bought the paint, and it turned out it was like school bus yellow. It was the most god-awful yellow thing I've ever seen. And I called the guy up, and he goes, oh no, it's a digit stop. It's actually colonial. So well, we actually went out to Rayburn just to paint it up there before we got on the road and got it correctly. But that was kind of what you asked for. So then, one of the local businesses, windows provider, they built custom windows for us. Oddly enough, the oldest building in town was the most energy efficient building in town, so. Needed windows, they gave us windows. So then we went, funny story about the depot wood, for the platform there, the historical society bought the wood, we went out and asked for bids, we went to, Home Depot, Lowe's, whoever. And Home Depot came back, they wanted $7,000 for the materials that they need to do the platform. So, we're just a small 501c3, so we go out to Home Depot, we would check for $7,000 something, and it was like the third check that we had written. So of course, Telecheck was like, $7,000 check, and they won't get it back. So the manager was trying to figure out how to cut the check, and he's on the phone with the regional guy, and it wasn't going to happen that day. So okay, we'll get a hold of it. So the next thing, off from Home Depot corporate, and they're like, yeah, you guys are 501c3, what's your tax ID level? Well, here's your rules. So I said, okay, I kind of like that. So in March of 2019, the platform on, of course, the guys working on that building that are the parks guys and parks maintenance guys. So there's not a whole lot of mowing and park maintenance going on in March. So the city, when here labor to do the platform, so we had a pretty good working relationship with the city. Okay, took it forever. And then working inside, the depot is actually 3 rooms. What people freight area, the fast area, the station agent's office. But as we got, we didn't replace any of the stud walls or anything. We added reinforcements to some of the older studs that were there. But as we got looking at that, we can see there were 20 walls between whatever I call the fast area and the station agent's. And as we got looking at that, we're thinking, this is only 600 square feet. The equals 20 or 30 feet. We're going to do a museum here. That's not a whole lot of room. So we decided not to put that wall in. You see the open up. And then, I wish I had a better picture of this, but going from the lowest level up to about 16 inches, as you can see, it's kind of a weird step. It's kind of high step up the first one and a short step there. And if you look at the landing up there, the wood's kind of worn through. And as we got looking at that, I wanted to fix that step and make the more standard step. And we pulled that board off, we found out why that was that way. That same weird pattern was on the steps, and the first step was going through. We couldn't hold the step. So they threw a board up, and didn't bother to even fix it, they just threw a board on top. But over the years, that board has become worn, so they literally flipped it over. So I'm going to show you a picture coming up here later how we managed to work around that. You can see the 2 freight doors here. The one on the right is operational, we control the operation. The one on the left is still there, but we can handle both of that. There's just too much floor space to have 2 freight doors operational. It's there, you can see it from outside. The roof, all original draft was supposed to be back on it. There was about a 2-inch siding roof that we had put some supports in to kind of back it out. Pictures of flooring. There was about 3 places in the floor that where they rotted through. The things that had been stored in there, they just soaked water and just rotted through the thing that could be replaced. And we had actually went out and obtained some silver wood to do the floor. But before we got started doing that restoration work on it, the city actually came and hired a flooring contractor to come in and floor for us. Great idea, but the thing is modern day floor contractors, their mental image was they replaced that with hardwood, and we're in the process of hanging old stuff to stains match the new, and we like, you'll stop ceasing to see us. No, we're trying to make this stuff look like old stuff. So we let the hardwood they used to put in there, we left it in place, and we found a process to kind of artificial age it and stainless to look like the old. So if you come visit, I hope you do, you can see where the new is put in place. It really doesn't catch your eye, it matches place, and a lot of people helped me doing it. Originally, inside the depot was bead board, and a lot of that was rotting to the point of being replaced anyway. And I don't think price of lumber like the depot is kind of expensive. We found this paneling that kind of mimics bead board, so we put that in. It looks pretty good. It's not paint up in it. Keep it green with PCC service that the depot is painted inside. So that interior, good stuff. In place, you see that there's can lighting in there. First time in history that the depot had lighting, electricity. If you know, had it stayed in operation, I'm sure they would have put lights in there. Right? So there's a comparison of the north end of the depot in 1941, and then again in 2018, that we got rid of, and then in 2019, when the building was structurally rebuilt. Remember the people signs I told you about? Both of them are still on the building. Our archaeologists restored one so people could see what it looked like. And then, of course, we don't put souvenirs back on the building. We put the depot signs inside the museum. We left one unrestored so people could see what it looked like. So what do you do when you finally get a building finally restored? You have a big party. We have a contest with family event. As a historical society, we were kind of thinking we're not really in the building ownership business. People restored now. We gave that to the city as a city building. Of course, we had a bunch of people that thought they were important. Of course, the Boy Scouts and Boy Scouts are important. They were there. These are not television and that kind of stuff. They did politicians and the mayor and judge now and what we all say. But doing that historical marketplace, and I don't know if any of you know Clint Fitzgerald. If you don't know who he brought those horns out. And that horn stuck in there, I don't know the names of these horns, but I guess from what Clint was telling me, that was probably the loudest horn forever installed on the floor of the Lord in the United States. So, Clint made sure that people down in Melissa and panels and and Skip Ladders about this Chichi Express. We had a good time. We dedicated it back, made it a public building, made it a building. And of course, she started setting up the museum. We had this particular display where the town was building a new fire station, and they were putting together some stuff in their historic fire equipment. So before the new fire station was built, they put it on display in there. Remember I was talking about the step, see what we did there. I pulled that one step up and leveled it out, so there wasn't such a cutout there for the property. And then we built the second step, and we actually used the recovered people to do that. So it's all unbelievable. In the background, you can see a couple bookcases, and in the front there's a material cabinet. They don't really bring themselves very well for museum display cases, so we're in the process of with some cases. We got a grant this year from the County Historic Commission. We got a $1900 grant, and part of our grant's going to be to put a couple more display cases, replace the material cabinets and display cases, and then also our grant. This is got us a map of Dallas to Rayburn that we use in Texas Central. It's about 4 foot by 7 foot map. So we're going to get that firmed up and put that on display. The freight door off to the right there, you can see that. The hardware for the freight door was missing. We nailed the door in place. So we got that all restored, and it's now operational. The age of our building, we're not required to be ADA compliant, but it kind of makes sense to be ADA compliant because it makes us accessible to people can visit. But being that we're only 30 feet long, and that step is like right in the middle of the depot, to get a ramp from the lower level to the upper level, I think literally have to cut a hole in the wall. So the way we get ADA compliant is like that on the outside, go up and the ramp in between the regular level. And we have that operation. We had, when you first start opening the museums, trying to get museums like that, you start looking at lots of things, and you find out real quick as a museum director that it starts not to say no a lot of times. It's weird because people want to donate their old digital scale way out, if they don't know where they're going to put it, and you can't even correct. It's just how you work the trash can and that type of stuff. So one day, the city council member called me up and said, hey, there's this guy, you know, the house story goes, this guy that's got some railroad stuff, and I'm thinking already about what are we going to do, still in for something, right? It turns out that this guy's name is Gil Strickland. He's a railroad chaplain. He was an Army chaplain for many years, but after the Army started, Marketplace Ministries out of Plano. And being a chaplain like that, Bill's father had actually started working for the Katy Railroad when he was 11, so that was back around the turn of the century. So Bill's father collected railroad stuff all his life. Bill became a railroad collector all his life. And then as he became a chaplain later years, unfortunately, what happened was a railroad grade crossing accident somewhere. The BNSF needed a chaplain. They got a hold of Bill, and they started the railroad chaplains ministry. So I don't know how many hundreds of chaplains were out in the country. He worked for the railroads. I tell you all that because Gil, he had saved a lot of railroad equipment all his life. His father's a key production of that. So when Councilman Beasley told him, said there's this guy, I think I'm not having a clue, but we went out and met with Gil. As it turned out, Gil was retiring, and the new CEO of the railroad chaplains needed the office space to give it to his museum. And he had no idea what he was going to do with his collection. He had already resorted to get back to the department and had to hire an intern and just eBay and stuff, cut so much to make money off of it, just to get rid of it. And so we met with him, he found out what we were doing at the depot, and he gave us this collection lock, stock, and barrel, over 600 items. So, I mean, what you see in that is just a tiny little piece of it. I call this display, it's the locks and lanterns. So kids need to see what, how we communicate, that kind of stuff. We have enough items from this collection we can get big displays through, over the years. All the way around the bottom area, that's what it is. When I presented here 4 years ago, Tony Wilson had been put in Chuck Harris collection. We ended up with a couple of storage units full of railroad artifacts. And I'm afraid Tony met me up in the hall. He said, I've got like 2 storage units full of stuff that I've been wondering what I was going to do to things with. And I talked about how we'd like to reconstruct this whole area, reconstruct it and special aging and stuff. I got an idea about what we're going to do with the equipment. Now, I just got kind of setting up there. I'm an electrical engineer, but don't ask me for electrical equipment. What can be done, but we will get it hooked up. I tell the kids that this is our texting corner. If you wanted to send a text message 100 years ago, this is how it was done. So we have the telegraph, the coils, the sounder box, the key. We got a 1926 under the typewriter. And then the telephone you see, that's a 1905 telephone. And the interesting thing about that is it's all of this existence that we can. Miss Sue Rollins passed away. She had something to tell been in her house all her life. So when she passed, the family gave us a number of items that can be wonderful. It's all original. I do not have all these stores that we can find. And the cord that you see there is actually a USB cord. But the real cord is in the phone. It was just real frail and I started to break. And wasn't sure how I was going to go about doing that. I didn't want it to break things. But my wife had just got a new phone, and she had an iPhone before, and I had to buy her a new charging cable. And I noticed her iPhone cable was like nylon, whatever was white. And I got looking at that, and up to the garage I went, on some old wood stain, get that charging cord in, and looks like that. It looks almost exactly like the cord that was on the phone originally. And this cord I just put inside, so it's there. All the phone call there, it's all there. I guess if you get a TDMS system, so they could probably pick it up and stuff like that. original map, that's that kind of school desk. We've got some 1938 classroom, we've got a 1917 journal, you know, people, that's calling it that day, you know, understand the 1917 journal. You can see there's a bell that Professor Roper would use to ring the school bell in the morning. So our plan is to have about 1/3 of the display to be railroad, and then the other 2/3 of the displays to be local history. And we've had some important guests and some visitors. That's Attorney Jonathan Paxton, and his wife stopped by one day to visit us. But he thinks it's important. For me, people like my darling Clementine, she's our important guest. We have a lot of kids. Clementine's been there a couple of times. She just absolutely loves it. And you probably noticed that she's wearing an Operation Life Saving Arrow hat. In May, for the National Training Day at Operation Life Saving, come out and join us. And we did a partnership with them. They provide us they provide us with curriculum and materials, and we do safety training and stuff in town. We have 6th grade classes in Ghana, and none of them protected by gates. Well, I think that after our 2 years, I think that gates. So we do real safety. For whatever reason, I can't feel like we figure out why high school kids don't do their graduation picture on railroad tracks. But we've been in partnership with it a lot, and that's a great partnership. The other thing you see there is the milkman, and I challenge you to look at any old rural railroad building in the past, like say 40s, 30s, 40s, whatever, and not find a milkman in the picture. We got a couple of them for you, though. Another important guest that comes to business quite often, this is Landon Miller, and the County Historic Commission sponsors a youth competition every quarter. It could be essay writing, which is disorders, art, or whatever. Landon actually won the competition for the video. The challenge was to do an advertisement video for local historical organizations. So Landon did a video for our historical society, and he has subsequently put together a number of YouTube videos, and quite talented. I wish at the time I could have no gear for the internet to that up, but trying to get his award. But he's done a coloring book for us. He's done uploader advertisements. He's done a bunch of fun things. So we decided to make Landon the official youth ambassador. I mean, I have a hard time reaching out to school kids. Landon is a school kid, and he's got that unique ability to reach out to them. So that moment, youth ambassador, and it's all official. This, if it worked, I don't know how to looking back, but this is the Anna Beacom leading advertisement that we did. I guess I could probably go to of course, we decorate for Christmas. The city puts lights on the building, and we have Santa Claus come by to light the tree. And then, of course, when Santa Claus was there, we got him to stick over express just to make sure everything's in order. We have a lot of fun. So let's get to the departments of the public NCSA 201. So this logo was built in 1906 by locomotive machine workers, among Alco, Harrison, and Music. On this particular construction order, there was 3 of them made for the Panama Canal. This particular one was the Panama Canal PRR 203. And operated down the Panama. It was a 5-foot gauge, operated on the canal until about 1922. At which time was sold as scrap. It went to a scrapper in Northern. W.T. Carter went over and bought a number of these locomotives. We got at least 3 of them operating. And it operated down in Moscow, Canada, and honestly, from about 1921 to 1960. At some point, it went to Scott and Freshman Lake over in Arkansas. And best I could tell, it didn't operate there very long. At some point, the Rayburn industry got a hold of Virgin organization, and they restored it, got it running, and operated on Spring in North Arkansas from 1974 until about 1999. We got 2 slide. Originally, was watching the program on History Channel today, pardon, modern. They had an episode on the Panama Canal, and I saw the scene go by, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, back that up, and I was thinking about, like, Dish TV, whatever, you can back it up, right? And I stopped at, this is actually a photograph of the screen, I think screen captured on TV. But the best I can tell, that's 203, which would make it a locomotive operating on Panama Canal. That's pretty cool. For the construction drawings, I did have a slope back to where it was on Panama. And when it came to the States, it was big and big, so they converted it to oil. I'm pretty sure that's what our locomotive operating on Panama. And if we had video, this is a video of it operating in 1955 down in Moscow Canyon. Is it what we were just, do you put the play button in there? Should get the cover out of it, you should get the play button. Yeah, there you go.
The camera of noted photographer C.W. Whitbeck takes us to Texas and the Moscow, Camden, and San Augustine. The mixed train hurries toward Moscow with an ancient combine for any passengers that might happen along. It's November 12, 1955. The 7-mile run is made daily except Sunday on a 1-hour schedule going to Moscow and a half-hour schedule on the return to Camden. The fare held at 25 cents from the inception of the service in 1898. Finally, it was raised to 50 cents in 1971. Owned by the W.T. Carter Brothers lumber interests, the line was built as a connection between their mill at Camden and the Texas and New Orleans Railroad at Moscow. San Augustine was a goal they never reached.
I love this next scene coming up. We'll see all kinds of modern day ocean.
At Moscow, after the engine was cut off and turned for the return trip, the cars were rolled down into the yard for interchange by gravity, and the engine caught the combine on the fly.
Guy up on the boxcar waiting to slip the brakes, and guys in between cars ready to throw the switch in between the rolling cars.
The train waits at Moscow for departure. The combine, built for the Long Island Railroad in 1898, would be sold in the future to a tourist railroad in Arkansas.
Any cool, Josh? That combine still exists, that's what they used for the
Local 201 is serviced at Camden. The 260 was built for service on the Panama Canal in 1906 by Alco's Cookworks. The Carter Company bought it in 1922 and sold it to MC and SA in 1929. It remained in service until the 1960s and is preserved at the Scott and Bearskin Lake Railroad in Arkansas, along with several other Carter locomotives. It has 54-inch drivers and weighs 65.5 tons.
Okay, I should tell you that I got permission from Hearing Rails, the copyright owners of the state, that will allow me to take this set from the presentation. So tractor is still spent there in Moscow Canyon. It actually operated up on the Green Springs in North Arkansas. This is a photo of it when it was operational. And I said it developed boiler this and this hot time on boiler in the late 90s. And they put it on display up there. So when we were in the process of getting our depot restored, we're convinced the city that we really needed that locomotive. People didn't go to the depot, they went to the train. So we started looking around for locomotive depot, and the obvious answer was the HTC number 119 in Elizabeth, that's in Georgia. And we contacted the guy multiple times, threw all kinds of money towards him. We just absolutely didn't want to sell it. It's in very poor condition. And we assured him that we were going to restore it. It was going to be beautiful. I'm not going to leave his heart just set on restoring it. He's in his late 80s now. He still has absolutely no intent to sell it. There was so few locomotives out there. We started looking for another lease opportunity. So, local resident is a real fan. Turns on to this particular locomotive. It kind of makes sense. The story is that, well, not story, it is true that it operated in Texas for many years. It ran from Moscow, from Camden into Moscow, and Moscow made interchange with the team and all back in the day was HTC. So, it could have maybe operated down. But anyway, we're up to get it. So, we contracted with Rayburn, which is your Rayburn organization, to purchase this locomotive. We moved it out of Union Springs in the spring of 2020. Moved it down to Rayburn. It's going through a restoration process, cosmetic restoration. Frame these steam clean this thing, cleaned everything, here's some grain and everything off of it. Got it repainted. You can see the tinder's got all the wood on it, and the floor for the tinder, and the hinges on it, cleaned up. And there was so much this week of spring photo, but this particular tinder in this photo is not the one that the floor on. When we got it up in the spring, the tender was so full of holes and leaks so bad. So they paired it up with a 226 tender for use up in the springs. But he's got this tender cleaned up, he's filled with all the holes shut and everything, he's getting it really good. Got a nice paint. The smoke box was so badly deteriorated that he had to replace it. What he's pointing out right there, I don't know if any of you ever got this, or he's one of the guys that's got it over me, but he was concerned about this, the limit for the smoke box. He's pointing out to me that they just simply couldn't get him to do 6 rivets. There's somewhere over 6 rivets missing to be there. I was thinking, there's Richard, nobody's going to be on the 6 rivets missing. If anybody does, they get a special priority. So, he's got the boiler off, rebuilt. So we went up last May to take a look, I think it was in May, March, sometime. We went up to see how things were going. There's nothing to do. The guy standing behind me in the white shirt, he was on the Parks Board with me back in the day when we first started looking at getting this locomotive. He has since been over the council. And then the other councilman there in the black shirt, he's been a very strong advocate for us on the city council and going through making sure that we do what we need to get this done. The guy here next to him is more Schlechte. He was the city's neighboring services director at the time this project started. Of course, he retired from there and he's still out. Then, of course, there's a big So, what he did when we went through before, we had our sponsors there. I'm sure your eyes are as good as mine. We just sit there and tell you, I can't possibly mention all the sponsors and donors and the government's office. I think that's really anything from the local banks to when we build these beautiful homes, Highland Homes, Berkshire's Market, Bronco Manufacturing, Newfoundland Bank, Texas State Bank, the list is still on. It's like every time we meet something, we just put the word out and people are attending again, we're a 501c3 tax exempt organization for education purposes. We're just like education society. About an hour west of here, 51 minutes if you go to school. I might know somebody with a kid who will come out and do it. We're open the second and fourth Saturdays of each month, and fourth Saturday days that we are. Museums open. Appreciate you. Got questions? Come visit us. We're really proud of it. Thanks, Jason.
We certainly appreciate that. You say when do you expect the loan to come?
We got to the state right on the contract.
So that's soon. We got one more presentation before lunch. Are you ready to do the other one? Okay. I'll turn this on, but let me walk over here and do this for 1 second. I want to give these folks a chance to speak just a second about what they've got going on back here. Everybody stop by the table and not go to give them all those conversations.
Okay, hello, everybody. I hope we had a chance to come back and fill out one of our little tickets, or signature cards, if you will. Put your name on it and what we have. And what we intend to do is pull out 4 main individuals, lucky persons to walk away with the door prize, I guess we like to say the terminology. It's an idea that we came up with on the drive from San Angelo to Commerce yesterday, and well, not yesterday, but in the course of we involved to what it is. We've got these door prizes that we would like to award, and there are gifts that came from the Railway Museum in San Angelo, from their little gift shop. And it's something that we are using to promote the Railway Museum
volunteers at that museum. So we just got the old days point what they're good at doing volunteers. And give it up, and we were very surprised recently. And found out that the current group of volunteers who are very enthusiastic young people with a lot of energy are putting on a play that we attended and were just blown away with the enthusiasm and performance that they were able to do. So the play was a professionally orchestrated and done, very well written by a woman who has done summarizes this afternoon conclusion of what we do today. It's something that we had to get on this program. Hoping to have some fun doing that. So.
I'm older than he is, and I forget a lot more. This symposium is always wonderful. There's so much great Texas history, and we're really happy to be a part of it. And thanks to everyone else for being here.
So if you hadn't signed your name on one of our little tickets to be in the drawing, please get them on. And that's it.
Thank you very much. We are so fortunate to have supporters like those, and I never thought about something like that, but they're that kind of thoughtful people that do this for everybody, so thank you so much. In this moment, it is, we're on more now.
All right, thank you once again, Jason. Portrait of a Northeast Texas railroader, 1889 to 1918. Okay? In this day and age, you rarely, if ever, see anything about railroad operations or history in that time frame, unless you go back to really old editions of railroad stories, kind of pulp fiction stuff that used to be published. And much less would you ever find anything on railroading in this particular part of the country, Northeast Texas. So I think you'll find this kind of interesting. All right. This is basically going to be a collection of snapshots. And when I say snapshots, I mean letters, greeting cards, some photos, some ephemera and so forth that were in a man's estate. Okay, and I'm putting this together to kind of give you a feel for railroading in Northeast Texas in that time frame that I just mentioned. You could almost subtitle this presentation as, what does a man's paper trail say about his career? In this particular case, a railroader, what does the paper trail say about day-to-day railroad operation? All right, so the man in question here, pretty sure this is the gentleman. This is, picture was found in his papers. B.F. Van Glon, okay? Sometimes spelled with an O, sometimes with an A. More often with an A. Did a little genealogy research. I think he was born in 1868, possibly as early as 1865. Was married. I think his wife's name was Mary, what I can tell. Had 3 children, and he resided for most of his life in Paris, Texas. By the way, in the documentation I have on this gentleman, I never once actually knew what B stood for in the abbreviated name there. However, I did find that he had a son named Ben, so it's a good bet that B.F. Van Glon was Ben F. Van Glon. All right, so we'll start with the first artifact in chronological order. Here's a handwritten letter dated August 28th, 1889, from Greenville, Texas. Basically what it says is that Van Glon was relieved as fireman on Katy Legion number 71 by Mr. A.E. George. Okay. And you'll notice throughout the presentation the fine handwritten penmanship of the railroaders who were issuing orders and so forth. They're much better than the cursive I ever learned or practiced. By the way, in this era, 1889, in Greenville, Texas, correct me if I'm mistaken, Greenville, the Katy in Greenville at that time was dual gauge. You had a narrow gauge line that ran east-west, and then you had the main line from Denison to down to Dallas, which was standard gauge. And I'm pretty sure from the research I did that number 71 was the standard gauge locomotive. All right, next we jump to November of the same year, Fort Worth, Texas. And our man in question is released from the Missouri Pacific Railway Hospital in Fort Worth for some kind of injury received back on the 13th of November. At this time, the Katy and TNP were kind of under the umbrella of the Missouri Pacific, and so you see a lot of documentation that you would think would say Katy or TNP access to the Missouri Pacific. And they built and operated a hospital in Fort Worth, which was later called St. Joseph's Hospital, I believe. So he had received some kind of injury and had been hospitalized. And basically, this letter is a release form for him to go back to employment. All right, I found these photographs in his papers and asked myself, well, was this the accident on November 13th? I think I know the answer, but I'll have you guess. What do you think? That's pretty bad, yeah. I have no idea what injuries in particular he received in the accident. I'm kind of guessing that kind of looks like a standard gauge railroad, isn't it? Okay. So I'm guessing it's not, if it occurred in Greenville, it wasn't on the narrow gauge. It would have had it on the standard gauge part of the Katy that ran through Greenville. I'm also thinking since he lived for a good part of his life in Paris, that this is probably an accident up in Paris at a later date. Now, I finally realized that when I noticed there was a slip of paper, handwritten, that was included with these photographs, that if you look at the back side of it, it's Texas Midland on the back page. So I'm guessing this was not the November 13th accident, even though I kind of supposed it was at the very beginning of this, putting this presentation together. All right, we jump to September 30th, 1890, in Greenville. A letter from the general foreman. It says that, basically it says, as fireman of MKT engine number 404, Van Glan was ordered to change from fireman on engine number 406. Okay. Now, I did research this. At this time, the Katy had received 11 narrow gauge engines from the East Line of Red River. Okay, renumbered them in the 400 series. So these are the engines that are being talked about here, these ex narrow gauge engines. So he's basically swapping engines with another gentleman. And I guess this was at a time that the engine crew were assigned engines and pretty well stuck with them unless they were reassigned by their superiors. All right, jumping ahead to September of 1891, a year later. Some of you who were here, I think, a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, may remember this letter because I used it in another presentation. the master mechanic orders our railroader, Van Glan, to go to Jefferson, Texas, and relieve a Mr. George Sweeney for 4 or 5 days. Okay. Now, if you actually read the letter itself, it's kind of flamboyant and interesting in its style. It says, "Dear sir, it is the order of master mechanic to put on your tailor-made clothes and stovepipe hat and proceed to number 34 in the AM. Go to Jefferson and relieve Mr. Sweeney for 4 or 5 days." Okay, I like that. Tailor-made clothes and stovepipe hat. What a way to frame it. Again, the letterhead still says Missouri, Kansas, and Texas. Now we come to later that year, December 31st, 1891. You notice the letterhead now says East Line and Red River. Okay, the East Line and Red River, I think, came about in the early 1880s, or was acquired by the Canadian in the early 1880s. So I don't know if they just ran out of forms, or they were just using up forms that they had around, but instead of saying Missouri, Kansas, and Texas, it's the East Line and Red River. Okay, so the letter here says, the master mechanic has ordered one of Van Glan's engine wipers to help Mr. Alfred operate a freight between Jefferson and Orr's Switch. Anybody know where Orr's Switch is? Ever heard of Orr's Switch? Okay. Again, we're talking about on the East Line of Red River, which ran from McKinney over to Jefferson. He also mentions that you get a pay increase up to $90 per month for performing this little task. Okay. So I guess in the hierarchy of engine crew, you had engineer, fireman, oster, and I guess the low man on the totem pole was a wiper. Okay. And in this case, the wiper was kind of promoted as a temporary fireman for Mr. Alfred's freight train. Okay, January 10th, 1892, out of Greenville. Again, stationary reads East Line and Red River. Okay, master mechanic reminds Van Glan about the expected data reports of the trips to, this is where I'm a little bit confused about. Read the second sentence on the letter. It says, from you, it says, "We were expecting trip reports from you of trips to something in return." Now, I've looked at that name and looked at it, and the best I can come up with is with Hawley, Hawley, or Hanley, or Harnley. I think it's Hawley. And I thought, well, maybe he's talking about a person rather than a location. But I don't know, the context of the sentence, it looks like a location. Okay? So I've kind of looked at the names of stations along that line, and I've yet to find a station along that line called Hawley. Anybody ever heard of that? Okay, could be one of those mysteries. Right. And to kind of back up my research, I found this from that time era schedule of East Line Red River. You notice that Orr's, it says Orr's here as opposed to Orr's Switch, is just west of Jefferson. Okay, but I see nothing remotely looking like Hawley. I thought, well, Hughes, but again, looking at that letter, I just don't see it as being Hughes. So maybe we have a station or a location or a business on that line that's not documented that is called Hawley, which has been kind of lost in the murkiness of time. You notice, if you look at the list of officials there at the top, you see Ian Alford, that was a general superintendent. He was mentioned in an earlier letter. James Long, he's also mentioned in some of the previous letters. He's master mechanic in Greenville. All right, February 6th, 1892, very mundane letter. Van Blon, our Rayburn question, is requested to relieve George Sweeney at Jefferson on February 6th. Plain and simple. Now, the question that comes to my mind is, as compared to today, was this how directions were given by letter? Was it ever an oral order? Or was this the documentation that was required at the time by the railroad? Just to write a letter, present it to whomever, were copies ever made? Answer is I don't know. Maybe one of you guys. All right, April 22nd, a little bit later in 1892. Again, we have East Line and Red River stationery here, a form. The superintendent at Mr. Albert, basically, he kind of recommends Von Blon, who's now a hofster, or acting as a hofster, for not showing his daily fuel reports for each of the cars that are received at Jefferson. So daily fuel reports, as in coal, was a requirement of somebody in at each station. Says, I wish therefore you show the weights of each car received on your daily fuel report. Please advise and can understand it. So I guess he was kind of missing. Providing those at the time and manner are incomplete. So is this the kind of thing that would go into your personnel file? All right. April 23rd, not too long afterwards, same year, superintendent once again recommends Oscar Van Blon for inaccurate accounting of coal for his engines at Jefferson. And notice here in the letter, the superintendent spells out what he thinks the coal weights that were issued to engine stations, coaches, and Sandhouse in Jefferson, Texas. Apparently, Mr. Van Blon was overstating the amount allocated to the engines. And so he was caught on that and got the attention of the superintendent to correct that. I guess so. Well, I want to pose this question right now before we continue on. At the end of the presentation, I want to ask you, was this Mr. Van Blon, was he a good railroader? Or was he not so good railroader? Or was he just an average railroader? Some good, some bad, okay? Let's keep that question in mind. I asked myself, after I read all this material. Well, 1892, somewhere, something, maybe the coal reports was what finished him off. He's no longer with the East Line of Red River, or Katy. He's on the Cotton Belt for, almost 2 years as a fireman. And of course, he says here it leaves under his own accord. So what does that mean? Better job, Maybe. Or he's a boomer? Maybe. Did he screw up again? Maybe, but we'll give him some slack. All right. So that's really all I know about his Cotton Belt career, is this service car here. Okay, but it definitely shows that the change in employment. Okay, well, after he left the Cotton Belt, it turns out he shows up on the Texas Midland. So that might have been a better job, awful. Okay. And these were a couple of trip passes, well, not a couple, it was 3 trip passes that were in his papers and, that I threw in here, just kind of add some color to the presentation. Let's see. The one from 1895, kind of top left, mentions he's a locomotive fireman on the Texas Midland. The type is kind of faint, so it's hard to read. Okay, so we're in his Texas Midland employment era. This is kind of interesting. It was just kind of in his papers, something that was typed up. It kind of gives you an idea of how the railroads were paid back then. This is definitely from the Texas Midland because it mentions Ennis on here. This is kind of information you just don't ordinarily see because it's not well published, at least not this day. Same time. Anybody note anything unusual or something that sticks out to you? Don't know.
Prior hours of service, they were working 16 hours a day.
Yeah, yeah. When did that occur? World War I era? Or before? Honestly, don't know. Something worthy of further research. Oops. Accident struck again. All right, here's a form that Mr. Van Loon received for replacing 8 new cash car wheels under Texas Midland Flat 6022, okay? Per MCB rules. What's that mean? That's car number, thank you, all right? His proportion is 1/5 of that, okay, for whatever this mishap. A whole $5.60. All right. Anybody notice something else and kind of interesting in that form? Okay, he's an engineer, fireman, okay. This is, by the way, 1900. Look at the logo. The Waco route. Okay, there was a few years there where Texas Midland had aspirations of going beyond Ennis to Waco. But it never happened. That showed up in some of their paperwork. All right, as a continuation of this, here's the bill to Mr. Van Loon for his share of the accident. Bill has been made, will be presented to you through auditor's office for $5.60, which I think was the previous form, your proportional cost for replacing wheels under Texas Amendment 6022. Slid flat on Extra South, January 3rd, 1900. Yours truly. It's like N.L. Smith. Okay, from the mechanical department. Oh, okay, well, it's written up at the top, a little over where I go, okay. That's mechanical, yeah. All right. At least once in his career, he was a real hero. All right. A little newspaper article dated around January 4th, 1901. Basically says he was engineer that day on the passenger train. You notice it says yesterday at noon he was handling the throttle on one of the big engines. I think the big engine at that time was one of these 460s here, which I have a builder's card inserted there. That was a big engine on the Texas Midland at that time. They later got some 280s, but that was later in 1913. Anyway, a couple of children were playing on the tracks at Coffin Street. I'm not sure if that's Paris or not. There might be more than one town along the Texas Midland that had Coffin Street. They were playing on the tracks. Bang on, noticed them. One child cleared the track safely. The other child apparently tripped, fell on the rails. And our hero applied the brakes in time before the child was run over. So he's a hero this day. Good for him. I just wonder if it makes up for all the other things that are yet to come and have happened in the past. That's a pretty big deal. Okay, 1909. Granted a leave of absence for 30 days. What happened? Don't know. Again, a letter from the master mechanic. Different master mechanic. Pardon? Yeah. Yeah, it's back to the middle of that. Yeah, the Waco route didn't exist on the forms and whatnot for very long. March 24th, 1910, he leaves engine service with the Texas Midland. Okay. There's a form here. He's an engineer, engine man. Gives his dates of employment. Reason for leaving service. Occupying main line beyond meeting point. All right. No. But at the same time, it notes services were entirely satisfactory. And as an engine man, he is sober, industrious, reliable, and far above the average. So was this an offense that they just couldn't keep him on? And was this you got to bribe a guy offense? That kind of sounds like it. Otherwise, it's pretty good railroad, based on the inputs from Master Mechanic Miller. Could have been some politics, yeah. Notice here I do include some cards from from the lodge that you remember. Right? Well, 1911. Guess where he is now? On the Frisco, Paris and Great Northern. Okay. Another accident, another discharge. Discharge for backing onto wagon on crossing. Oops. So his stint with the Briscoe wasn't that long. All right, seeking employment, apparently he was familiar with somebody, Cotton Belt, maybe somebody he had worked with earlier or just happened to know. So he gets a letter of recommendation from, looks like maybe Thomas Fraser. Yeah, Rick Elmer. Yeah, okay. So he's writing this contractor in Hamilton, Texas, and says, don't hire this guy, Mr. McCool, but hey, consider BF on the line. Now, at this time, in Hamilton, Texas, construction was going on, or had been going on, with the Cotton Belt or Stevensville, North and South Texas Railroad, to places like Comanche. Okay, so that's the reason why this contractor is mentioned here. Mr. Thomas and Scott. All right, Thompson and Scott, railroad contractors, right back, Mr. Pine back and said, like to have you, but no, we just don't have any need for engineer. Okay, now the end of the paper trail. Back with the Texas Midland. 1918, this was like, what, 7 years later? At some time, he was reemployed. He's now a brakeman, or was a brakeman, and was granted a leave of absence as requested. That is the end of what we know about his railroad career. Whether he continued on with some other railroad or whatnot, I have no idea. It said the paper trail ends here. 1868, so he was, what, 32 in 1900, 50? Yeah, it's definitely a downgrade, I think. To me, it's a downgrade to what he was before. Yeah, I mean, maybe that was the best he could get with the Texas Midlands, being reemployed. Yeah, it says Switchman, yeah, you're right, yeah. Yeah, he definitely, didn't have the kind of job he did earlier in his career. Okay, so this is kind of a recap of his career as far as we know. So, 1889 to 1891, fireman with the Katy, 1891 to 1892, officer with the East Line of Red River, which is now owned and operated by the Katy. 2 years or less than 2 years, locomotive fireman with the Cotton Belt. And then his long career, 1896 to 1910, locomotive engineer with Texas Midland. And then somewhere between 1910 and 11, he was a switchman with the Frisco. And then somewhere after 1911, he was reemployed with Texas Midland, and where he left as a brakeman in 1980. And as you pointed out, he would have been 50 years old. Here's some miscellaneous items, cards, that were in his papers. You know, I noticed earlier that a couple of cards said Brotherhood of Locomotive Firemen. All right. At that time, was there a Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers? Or was everybody kind of included with the Brotherhood of Locomotive Firemen? Do you know about what kind? Oh, there were two different, okay, unions, okay. I wondered about that, because even when he was an engineer, he was still a member of the PLF. All right, this isn't really about our railroad in question, but this is an article that was with his papers. Rather sad tale. Must have been somebody he knew or worked with at one time on the Texas Midland. Basically what it says is that this Mr. Jack Taylor was in the habit of throwing, he had a brother-in-law that lived near the Trinity River Bridge near Gloucester, Texas. Okay, and he would throw out, as he was passing through on the train, he would throw out packages and mail and so forth. But he was in the habit of doing it. Well, one day, he kind of missed through his, whatever he had to his brother-in-law, wind caught it, and so he looked out the fireman's side of the locomotive cab and didn't realize that the bridge was looming immediately in front of him and was basically almost decapitated and hung up on the bridge. But the engineer didn't know it until several hundred feet later. And of course, it killed him. His body was taken to Ennis, where the Ennis Lodge of Oddfellows, I forget, took care of the body. So obviously, this is kind of portrays some of the hazards of railroading that era. Not that it couldn't happen today if you start your head out at the wrong moment, but I managed to find a photo of the bridge. I think this must be an earlier bridge, probably the bridge that where the accident occurred. Because I've seen another picture of the bridge where it had cast iron pilings. This bridge, well, maybe not this exact bridge, but whatever bridge was there was washed out in 1942, and that severed the line. SP, which owned the Texas Midland in 42, basically abandoned it from the profit limits. That was the coup de grace for the southern part of the Texas Midland. Something else that was in his papers, I thought it was kind of interesting. He must have been taking a calligraphy class at one point and made some notes. Again, I marvel at his penmanship. My mother has penmanship about that good when it comes to my generation. Yeah, I can do cursive, but nothing like that. All right, thank you very much. Any questions? Yes, sir.
If you look for his name in Census records,
Yeah, I did a brief bit of research, through Ancestry.com and obits and stuff like that, and was never able to find an obituary for him. I don't know when he died. There was a mention in the 1920 Paris High School, I think it was yearbook, of a Ben Von Braun who had just recently graduated. So I'm assuming that's probably one of his three sons. And that was my clue, of course, that the B and BF was probably them. Just a thought, that's a, yeah, that's a, could very well be. I would love to know what his full name really is. Yeah, I would assume it is. I noticed that, I don't know if you noticed or not, but in some of the documents it's spelled with an O and some with an A. But A seems to predominate. It seems more Dutch to me than OHM. One of his sons, apparently, there was also a little wire notebook in his papers Apparently, one of his sons was a fireman with the, at Camp Maxon and with the Paris Fire Department. I do know that one. No, I didn't. No. Yeah, when I run out of things, yeah, I would really like to get the full story on his life, figure out, you know, when he died, and so forth, and if he ever. Yes, yes, he was in one of the censuses, was listed living in Paris at the time. I think that may be where I learned that his wife was even married. But other than an address, that was all information I could get. Yeah, I mean, you never know. I mean, but to me, it's surprising that these papers and stuff still exist. That really just toss in the trash can. And it's interesting what does exist. Why would you keep some of that stuff, you know, all the years, you know, especially the leave of absence and dismissals and discharges and stuff like that. So, could be. Yeah, yeah. Oh, one other artifact that I didn't have a picture of, but which is really interesting, is trip book. He had a trip book of some of his trips on the Texas Midland. You know, it gives, of course, the train number, and how many cars, and, you know, from where to where, and so forth, stuff like that. So. All right, thank you.
I just checked next door, and I believe the folks are ready to receive us for lunch. So, if you're ready, you go out door and come back, and it's on the other side of this wall. And it's kind of buffet style, like we have baked potato and lots of things to add to that. So, enjoy lunch, and we'll come back for the afternoon breakfast.